be jumping into what a tree is today. We're going to talk about how you can incorporate talking about the parts of a tree into your classroom, either through dramatic play, hands-on crafting, outdoor exploration, things like that. The amazing thing about Project Learning Tree is that it's so flexible. When you read it in the book, in the guidebook or online, you're going to see, they're using yarn, and my kids aren't going to be great with yarn and that hanging, and that's not going to be a really good functional thing. Don't disregard it, because I'm going to show you with the project that we do today, there are so many ways that you can adapt it to what your mobility levels are in your classroom or with your kids, what your kind of understanding abilities are. And I'll give it to you at levels where you can dig deeper into it and take it further, maybe either on a different day or even in the same day if you wanted to make it a whole day program. But I have two little kids. I've got a 5-year-old. A 5-year-old, hold on. He just turned 5. It's not totally my fault. A 5-year-old and a 7-year-old. And we all know that sometimes those kids, they love it or they aren't going to focus on it that day. And you just need to take one part of it and be happy with that one part working, and maybe reintroduce it later and say, hey, remember when we did this? We're going to build on that, and we're going to kind of expand on it a little bit more. I wanted to, since we are talking about trees today, that's a little bit about me. I know that Megan told me a little bit that some of you are formal educators. We have a couple of homeschool folks, and we have a couple librarians. I think, Megan, is that true? I think that was true, right? Maybe one librarian. I love librarians. We're going to talk about my librarian friend Donna later and how much she did for this program too. So librarians are the best, so kudos to you if you're in this program today. But I did want to find out if anyone has a favorite tree. We're going to do a quick poll here. Megan's going to pop this poll up. I don't know what my favorite tree is. I think I know what my favorite tree is. So go ahead and log your favorite tree. These are all very general. Megan and I talked about throwing some catalpas, some Kentucky coffee trees on there, but decided to go with your basics. And just see what other people thought. And if you have just pop your microphone or put in the chat what your other favorite tree is. Cause hackberry, nice. Hackberry, I feel like that's a silent, like they're a great tree. They're redbud. Yeah. They're a great tree, hackberry, but feel like they get they don't have a very fancy name. No one really wants to plant a hackberry in their yard because it sounds kind of whatever, but ooh, redwoods. But hackberries are awesome.
Lots of birds. I love the spring migrations. My parents have a lot of hackberries, and oh my goodness, all the warblers and everything. Yeah, hackberries are underrated.
Yeah, exactly. Plant more hackberries, folks. We have a Canadian. It's so funny that you say maple being Canadian, because hi, Catherine. My coffee cup had a maple leaf. It was from the Apaskawak Cree Nation up by the Paw, and it had a maple leaf on it. My daughter colored in the leaf outlines for me for the program that we did, my project that we did. She was like, Mom, this is a maple leaf. And I was like, it is a maple leaf. Thank you for identifying that for me. It was awesome. So, hey, we're kind of across the board. We don't have a lead runner. Other would be maybe the top choice besides oak. Does anyone have a favorite oak? I have a white oak in my backyard right now, and it holds on to its leaves all winter pretty much. It's pretty cool. So we've tied with oak and other, and we've got a nice variety of other favorites here. Bur oak, yeah. I love those bur oak acorns, right? They're really fun. My kids pop them off and then use them for different things. It's really cute. So trees are, I think, a really fun thing, and you can do this with your class. You can show them different, yes, pin oak does have crazy leaves. You can do this with your students and kind of give them a list and do it as a poll. You could do it as a graphing project if you want to do it. If your kids are doing graphing, you could have everybody vote, and you put a little dot, and you could keep it simple: maple, oak, pine, talk about pine is what makes Christmas trees, maple is what makes syrup, oak is what makes acorns, and give them some identifiers so that they kind of know what you're talking about, and then do a voting activity. And then as you vote, you can graph and you can talk about why people like different things and preferences and stuff. And so you can introduce that graphing project, which is really fun, I think. We've done that with my son's preschool program. The graphing is really a great visualization for them to show where everyone's preferences are, and their kids can talk about, well, I like syrup on my pancakes and I like oak acorns because we collect them. My daughter made a squirrel store this past fall of acorns, and she set it up like a lemonade stand in the front of our house, and then it sat there for a month because I wasn't allowed to take it down. So it's a really cool way to introduce it and get it maybe during a circle time, maybe during a class discussion, and then go into what makes a tree a tree. And kids might have their own ideas. You could have every kid draw a picture of what they think a tree looks like. I'm going to introduce, and I think you might do this with other programs as well, but I'm going to introduce a program called Jamboard, and I'm going to get you. This is my Jamboard. I'm gonna leave it as me, but I can send, like, you can send this link out and I could send it to you. I'll just do that really quick. I'll put it in the chat. So basically you can, anyone with this link can edit and can add their own stuff to this Jamboard. So let me just really quickly get this to everyone, and you can pop in it if you want to. The link is in the chat right now, and you can click on it. And you have to make sure, if you wanted to do this with other teachers or with your students, if they are able to navigate a computer fairly well. The nice thing about it is it's a great virtual tool. It's a virtual whiteboard. You can really draw just like you would on a whiteboard. So I'm going to draw my tree right here. And you can have kids draw their own tree. Look at this really beautiful tree. Everybody, really appreciate how perfect this tree is going to look. We're all friends here. But you can draw your tree and your little elements, and then we're going to go through and label these. And the nice thing about little kids is that sometimes they come up with their own names for things, and I just love that. And so you can ask them, I'm going to have you guys kind of jump in here, and you can put on what you think your tree labels would be. You can grab this little text box tool over here, and you can just pop in a little, so I'm going to say leaves. And then you can pop in a new text box, and feel free to kind of jump in and make your own. I'm going to say stem. Maybe a kid would say that that's a stem of a tree. And then they're going to say that maybe this is an acorn or whatever that is. And you could go through, and the kids don't have to do this. You can take their things that they say, and you can put them up there for them, and then go through and kind of talk about it. And some kids say, oh no, that's not a stem, that's a trunk. And so you can add on and say, okay, well, we think that's a stem, but we also think it's a trunk. And they're going to say, no, that's not an acorn, that's a whirligig. And so then you go through and you add whirligig, and you talk about the different names for things as you go along. And then once everyone's done, you have this free share time. You can go through and give potentially the correct names, or maybe address some of the differences in the names. Yeah, these are leaves, but all the leaves together, maybe typing in here, there it goes, is actually a crown. And so you talk about, yeah, these are leaves, but the whole top of the tree that has the leaves on it is the crown. And then some things that maybe we missed, the things that hold the leaves up. We've got branches. This whole thing, maybe we make a big title, and this whole thing is called a tree. And then you can go from there. Yeah, these are acorns and whirligigs, but all of those are different types of seeds. And you can talk about the differences between seeds and fruits, different things like that. I mean, fruits contain the seeds. Some trees have fruits. There's lots of really great discussion topics here. Yeah, we've got roots. Great job to the person who did roots. And then the really nice thing and if you're a Spanish speaker, you may know these words right off the top of your head, but in Project Learning Tree, in the curriculum, it does give the Spanish words as well. So if you have some kids and some students that maybe are Spanish speakers, they could give you the Spanish names so that everyone can learn them, or you could give them to them and write them down and have the kids repeat after you. So there's some really good expansion ways that you can kind of introduce some different topics and really take this deeper. So that's a great use for it. If you wanted to just go through, if you wanted to do this virtually, this is a great tool to put up, and you can have the kids shout out. And then if you do work with older kids, they can have their own text color, they can have their own box color, and really do that. If you are an in-person teacher, you can just do this on your dry erase board, on your chalkboard. You can have a felt tree, you can have a paper tree, and the kids would put up the little parts onto the tree themselves. So it's a more interactive thing. I wanted to give everybody virtual tools and in-person tools so that if you are in both situations right now or in the future, you would have those. The felt tree is great because it's reusable. Obviously, you could do a bulletin board and have the kids name the different parts of the tree. So that it's just a really great way to introduce it. And then as you go in, if you read the lesson ahead of time, or if you even made your own, we're going to be making ourselves a tree. We're going to be a tree during this lesson today. So you can go out if you wanted to introduce an outdoor element. I know that there are a lot of schools that want kids to have a certain amount of outdoor element to their day. If you have the ability to go out, observe some trees, say, hey, we looked at all these parts of the tree, let's go out and check them out, or look through your window, and the kids can point out on those trees any part that they can see. That's really great. This is a great opportunity to collect leaves that we could potentially use for later in this activity. Collect pieces of bark. We don't want to take the leaves of the bark off of the tree. We want to leave that on the tree, but this is anything that you can find on the ground, seeds, acorns, things like that. And we also want to make sure we're taking it from a place that we're allowed to take it. If you have a neighboring tree that maybe is right up next to your schoolyard, you want to make sure that you have permission to take that stuff before you take it, because, state parks, national parks, city parks, they don't always want you to take that stuff. So make sure that you have permission to do that before you do that. But it's a great opportunity to do some hands-on. I have tons of options here if you don't have hands-on ability or you don't have that kind of freedom in your structure. No problem. This is just a great opportunity to introduce some outdoor observation. If you wanted to use your binoculars that you made in Carly's program to observe the different parts of the tree, really focus, that helps you really focus on the different parts of the tree. That's great too. So we're going to introduce our tree costume at that point, whether you have gone outside, whether you have just made the supplies in your classroom. You're going to see the stuff that I did. It's not gathered outside. It's not even the stuff that they have in the lesson plan, because I really wanted to show you that it's very, very versatile. So did anybody make their own? Did you guys make your tree vest? You don't have to wear it. I tried to wear this one and I just about hulked out of it. I was gonna wear it today, but I almost literally split the whole back of it. So I just decided not to. Here's mine. We've got mine's already completed. The lesson plan gives you a template to cut it out. And it was very simple. If you didn't already do it, you can hold it up. Do I see some people have it? Hold yours up if you've got them. Show off your tree costumes. Okay, just me, it's fine too. But it's very easy to do. Again, these are child-sized. These are not adult-sized bags. It's definitely going to be more for kids, but it's very easy. This is just your standard bag that you get from, obviously mine is from Aldi's. But if you want to make sure your armholes are big enough that the kids can get in and out of them easier without ripping, that is definitely like the limiting factor. You want to make sure that armhole has lots of real estate. And it's not for fashion, it's just for fun, So make sure that you give them plenty of easy access to get the, sorry if it's rustling. I have this fancy microphone that's probably rustling all over the place, but you're going to cut out these, and I would recommend doing this ahead of time. It's a little bit, I think it would be a little too tricky for the kids to cut out their own with lines. It's all about what your kids' skill levels are. You can have them do it from start to finish, but I think probably for time management and for frustration management, definitely maybe have those cut ahead of time. And I wouldn't say it would take too long for a class of 20 kids or whatever. You can do a couple a night. But so you're going to introduce our tree costumes. We're going to start with our leaf crown. We talked about how a bunch of leaves together is a crown. So we're going to make our leaf crowns. There's so many different options you can do. You can take those leaves you collected outside, or maybe you bring in leaves from home. The kids could do individual leaf rubbings and cut those out. And that would be really fun because you could go through, oh, why do you have these lines that go through the leaf that show up really well? Those are the veins that get the water out to the leaves and the nutrients out to the leaves. You could have pieces of green paper that are torn up, that the kids tear up pieces and we imagine that they're leaves. What I did was in the Moodle, in the classroom, online classroom that we have for this program, there's a leaf template. It's a free use leaf template. And I just had my daughter color them. And so I cut them out, and I used, this is just a piece of a paper bag. Since I had all those paper bags anyway, I just cut off the bottom of one. You could cut off the bottom of each kid's vest and use that. And I just made it into a little band, and I took those leaf cutouts that were colored. If you don't have time in your classroom to color them, they can just be white and you could color them later. And I stapled mine on because I didn't want, when you're gluing stuff and you want kids to wear it right away, you either want to use a glue stick or whatever. You don't want, to use that wet glue that's then going to stick in their hair or be gross to feel. So, but I stapled mine, and that worked great too. And then you can talk about, put it on. In the lesson plan, it talks about having string and hanging them from them. I thought that might hang in kids' eyes and be distracting, but it's all what works for you. So I stapled mine on so it actually stands up like a crown. And we talk about the purpose of leaves. Leaves the crown has to hold the leaves up high. It has to reach the sun to make photosynthesis happen. You don't have to use the term photosynthesis. You can use energy. The tree needs energy from the sun to make the plant grow. So it uses these leaves. They have to be reaching up high to reach the sun. So you want your crown to stand as tall as you possibly can. I'm going to wear this for the rest of the class. I hope you guys don't mind. So we make our crowns. We definitely, you can choose whatever colors. My daughter was like, Mom, does it have to be green? Does it have to be fall colors? I was like, whatever colors you want. As you're doing your leaf activity, where's my leaf outlines? The free template that I posted on there, it's got a bunch of different varieties. These are all just oaks and maples, but there's some different ones on there. This is a great opportunity if you have kids that are interested, or time or the ability to maybe talk about what leaves come from which trees. There's a resource that is included in the Moodle, and it's called the Fandex, and it's a leaf identification little handbook. I got mine from the LaSalle Library. My friend Donna put together a whole list of tree resources that they have at the LaSalle Library, but should be available at a lot of different libraries. This one I thought was really cool, and I hope it comes through on the screen, but it has the bark from each tree, the leaf type, and then it'll have the seed and some information about it. And this, I just love this because you could take your leaf template that's cut out and kind of match it up and say, I'm a birch tree, I'm a basswood tree, I'm a, whatever. And they can match it up by shape. They can match it up, things like that. And you can really kind of do a quick tree identification without a ton of extra work. You know what I mean? You don't have to search through the internet. You don't have to they can literally just match up the picture and get a general, here's our heart-shaped leaf with our heart-shaped, I'm like backwards, heart-shaped leaf template. And you could say, oh yeah, look at this basswood tree. I have this heart-shaped leaf. I have a heart-shaped leaf here. I'm a basswood tree. So you can go through and kind of do that. You can do it with leaves that are brought in from home. So you can each kid can then take on a specific type of tree if you want. It's really how in-depth you want this program to go. But having an identification tool like that, also in the Moodle is a online tree identification through the Arbor Day Foundation that you could go through and say, okay, this is the type of leaf I have. This is what it looks like. This is, you know, and it takes you through, what's that tool called? Megan, do you know what I mean? The tree identification thing. Sorry, guys, I'm blanking. But anyway, a natural way that you identify trees, it takes you through the identification process online instead of in person, which is maybe sometimes easier for kids. So we've got our tree crowns, we've got our leaves.
Dichotomous key.
There it is. Yeah. I don't know who it was, but thank you, dichotomous key. Great work, everybody. Teamwork. So you've got our leaf crowns. This is, you know, it's going to be all about, if you're thinking about how you can incorporate this into a day-long program, you can make this as short or long as you want. You can just have them do this and put it on. If you wanted to focus, take only one part of your class and do, today we're going to work on the crown and the leaves. Tomorrow we're going to work on the bark and the trunk. You know, the next day we're going to do the roots, and we're going to do one part at a time, culminating in Friday where we're going to do a dramatic play with all of us, our trees, things like that. The opportunities are literally endless. All right, so then we're going to distribute our bags in our class, and your kids are going to, I would recommend, the way that they recommend it in Project Learning Tree is just giving them a bag vest and just giving it to them and just trying to see what they think about and where they go with that in their mind. Kind of seeing what they think it could be. Some kids are going to get it right away and they're like, oh, this is my trunk, obviously. Other kids are going to, you know, try to think about, this is the skin, this is whatever. And that's great. You can see my really homely, I would like to say that my children did this bark, but I did this bark. But it's a good tearing activity. If you have kids that maybe have mobility issues that have a hard time cutting, tearing is a great option, and it lowers the frustration level. I have a child that does not like cutting, so I know that stress. In the lesson plan, they talk about using crushed up cinnamon sticks or bark pieces. If you don't have access to bark that's just sitting on the ground, that could be a tough thing. And like, cinnamon sticks are expensive, y'all. We're in a pandemic. Who's paying for cinnamon sticks just to glue them on a bag? Like, that's not what I was about for this. So you can print out you can do bark rubbings. If you just have a couple pieces of bark, you could rub that on paper. They could glue that on there. Tearing up cardboard, or tearing up paper, I mean, my daughter was like, well, don't you just want to put like brown lines on it so people know what it is? And I was like, no, I don't. So you can make it as in-depth as you want. She was offended that I was not going to go deeper into this project, but you can grow it on there. You could talk about what the bark does for the tree, what its uses are. Some kids are going to think about it and they're going to not have any idea. They're going to, you know, why does this bark exist? And then we talk about our skin and what our skin does for us, how our skin protects us from different elements. And then you could think about what the bark is. We might talk about what kinds of things we find in the bark. We could talk about termites, woodpeckers, and how that tree protects its insides from the predators, from the elements, the sun, the wind, all that kind of stuff. Sorry, I'm going to take a drink. So you're going to go through that, and then they can glue on their crushed up cinnamon sticks or whatever you choose to do, and put those on there, and then they can put their vests on, but we're going to have another element, so you may want to have them wait to put their vests on until the next step in our process. And the next step is roots. You're going to go all the way down to the roots. At this point, you can return to your drawing if you would like, and say, okay, we've done our crown, we've done our leaves, we've done, you know, we didn't talk about branches, you know, and those kinds of things. We didn't talk about seeds. It's hard to do those with the elements that, or it's not hard to do those, but you can figure out a way, if you'd like, of introducing those. But in this project, you know, you focus on leaves, crown, trunk, bark, and roots. And so you go, okay, so we talked about our crown, our leaves, we talked about our trunk and our bark, and then what's next down here? And then the kids can say roots. And if you wanted to do, this is a step further. If you wanted to do this, I don't know how it's going to show up. Ooh, I don't want to tip it. How it's going to show up on screen, but we could talk about what the purpose of roots are. And they have so many uses. So if kids come up with some of them, amazing. If they come up with none of them, great, with just more explanation. You know, roots can help stabilize the tree, hold it up. Everyone needs a strong foundation. If we didn't have feet, well, how would we stand up? If we didn't have a wheelchair, how would we move, you know, how would we keep ourselves stable and upright, you know, things like that. And you could introduce different mobility, you know, maybe you have a child that has a walker, and you could, if they feel comfortable, their parents feel comfortable about them talking about how they use the walker to help them stay upright and stable, great. If someone uses hand canes, it's another great option. But only if they feel comfortable. You never want to, you know, put a kid on the spot and put them in a spotlight like that. That would be terrible. But so they form your stability. And then you also talk about, how do we get nutrients? How do you drink? How do you take in your nutrients? A tree needs to take in nutrients somehow too. And they use their roots. There's a little hands-on example. I hope you can see it. So I've got some water with food dye in it. And this is just a paper towel, and it's a paper towel that's been kind of rolled up to make it look like kind of like a straw, nice absorbent straw. So we're going to just pop it in, and I hope you can see it. But as the paper towel goes in there, it starts to soak it up. And you can see that it's that initial is really dramatic. It kind of, but then it slowly makes its way up. You can revisit this. You can turn this into a graphing tool. You can measure it in increments of a couple minutes. And put it on a chart. Oh, after 1 minute, it was this far up after, you know, so you can turn that into its own activity if you'd like. Like I said, if you wanted to spread this over a week and do different activities every day as part of that week to make this up. So you can turn it into a charting activity if you really want to. So this is a great activity. So these roots, this is our tree root, and it's down in the ground and it's sucking up to get those nutrients up. If you wanted to go even further and do xylem and phloem, the inside parts of a tree, you could definitely do that. So we're going to add our tree roots to our vest here. We're going to make it into a 70s fringe vest. Here we go. I just use tape. I just use masking tape. You can use whatever you'd like. If you'd like glue, if you'd like a stapler, I think tape works the best with yarn, and it's, you know, it's going to make it the easiest, quickest, less messy. So I just use masking tape because you're not going to see it. It doesn't need to be invisible tape. Things like that. And then you've got your roots, and the kids could choose to make them, you know, if you wanted to have pre-cut strings, you could. If some kids wanted to cut their own pieces of yarn, I mean, some kids would be like, I want really long roots because my roots need to go down so far into the ground, but that might just mean that you're using a lot of yarn that day. It's all about what you got in your classroom. If you'd rather use strips of paper, if you don't have yarn or you don't want to use yarn for this, strips of paper that the kids could use, really, there's a lot of adaptations. And then our tree is complete. Our tree is all done. We've got our tree vests on, and then you can go and the kids could talk about what kind of tree they are, how they made their tree the way that it was, their favorite part of the tree, and do a little demonstration there. I'm gonna pull up. They're in the Moodle. I didn't have it pulled up, dang. But in the Moodle, there is a me and my tree activity where they could talk about their tree. It's like a worksheet that they can fill out. If you have kids that do well with worksheets, you could do it that way, or you could ask them questions that they could answer, or as a class, you could do this discussion. But basically it's identifying their tree and the parts of their tree. They draw a picture and then they kind of identify it, or you guys could, again, revisit your picture that you drew. Maybe you have a blank Jamboard or a blank tree description on your Jamboard, and you have a filled in one, and you can go back and forth. And then they discuss what they are like as a tree. If I was a tree, this is how I get my food. This is what protects me from the elements. This is how I get my energy, or how I make my energy. And you can, you know, do that description there. If you want to take it one step further, there's this amazing, I'm going to throw it up on the screen. It's an amazing program through the Jane Goodall Foundation. Their Roots and Shoots has, I've like got this, there we go. It's called the Tree of Hope. And it's basically this is taking it more into like a social studies aspect of things. So it's basically what their roots are, what their foundation is, the things in their life. I'll put up a bigger picture. There isn't a very clear picture on their website, so I apologize, it's kind of blurry, but their things in their life, and this is sometimes a little hard for kids. I did this program with my kids at the beginning of homeschool, and it was a little tricky for my 4-year-old, 5-year-old to grasp onto. And so some of the things that made them who they are, the things that are their foundation, were things like, I love waffles, or, you know, I like playing computer games, or these are the things that they love, the things that make them who they are. Sometimes they said things like family, or my house, or my bedroom, and it's great. And it's really this cool way to get your kids thinking about who they are and what makes them them. So the roots are going to be the things that make you who you are. And then the trunk is the things that help you stay together. So this was things like staff, and this is the Jane Goodall Foundation. This is Jane Goodall's Tree of Hope that she did, but hers would be things like her staff and her mission and things like that. And then the shoots, the branches, these are the things, her dreams, her goals, and how she wants to make those happen. So kids could be like what they want to be when they grow up, what they want to learn this year, things like that. And so it's a really cool, almost social studies aspect to this that kind of drives home who they are. So I just thought that was a really good, and there's a link to that in the Moodle as well. So it's a really good kind of tie-in for kids to kind of say, yeah, this is a tree and this is the important parts of the tree. But here's the important parts of you. And if you could be a tree, this is what you would be. I just really, I liked that program, and I love kind of tying in how that could all fit together with them. So then, you've got this program done. Maybe it's Friday, or maybe it's the end of the day. Maybe you want to have the kids do a little dramatic play, kind of work in that element of your classroom, of your practice. And that's awesome. So if you wanted them to to be a tree, and they can decide where they want to be and what habitat they're in, and maybe there's squirrels, and maybe there's, you could add some puppets in there, you can do whatever really resources you have in your classroom. It's just a really great option to give your kids the freedom to be a tree, and with no guidance, they can just kind of free play and run around in their crowns and their leaf or bark vests and things like that, and give them that opportunity and that freedom to kind of go with it. And then we could kind of bring it back home. It's a great opportunity to make notes to send home to parents. John was a tree today, and this is, where he went, and it's a great little anecdote, and a parent would love, I think I would love to hear about that if someone was writing it home to my kids. So it's a great opportunity to take some notes and send home some notes for parents. Did anyone have any quick questions now that we've kind of wrapped up that? Doesn't have to be quick. It can be a long question now that we've wrapped up that part of the program. I was really just giving myself the opportunity to drink water because I was really thirsty. I wanted to go through some of the other resources that were in the Moodle now that we've kind of wrapped up the project learning tree portion of it. And in the quiz, I'm not giving away any answers, but in the quiz, there's going to be some discussion tools and stuff like that, especially if you have maybe kindergarten, first grade kids. There's some really great turn and talk and different things like that, resources at the beginning of the guide where you can take the program and introduce some discussion tools and some free thinking programs for kids. So I really encourage you, if you haven't gone through that guide in detail, to kind of take a look at those, and maybe there might be a quiz question about them, just saying. But I think I mentioned this earlier, but my friend Donna gave a ton of book recommendations. There's probably like 15 to 20 book recommendations on a list there. All of those were available at my local library. I know this because she gave them to me, or not to keep, but just to check them out for me. I have a giant pile of tree books, but this was definitely my favorite. It's Tell Me Tree. and it's by Gail Gibbons. And it's exactly what we did in this class. It's the parts of the tree. It's really great images. It's got tells a story about trees as they go along, about the different types of seeds. And then it goes through the roots and how roots get nutrients. So it was a really great program, especially for this lesson. But there's a variety of other ones that are more story-based. There's some that are sad because of how a tree has been used, things like that. So if you wanted to introduce that kind of discussion topic, one specific one that was a little bit sad, I'm sorry, I should have been ready. It's called, never mind. This is what happens when you're not prepared. But it's in there, and there's some notes in there in the Moodle about what the age appropriate level is of that program. So kind of keep that in mind. Here it is. It's called Very Important Plant. It's an old school one. It's like an old Penguin Random House. And it's more like a free poem or like a poem than anything like that. But it kind of talks about, it does a little bit about pollution. It does a little bit about deforestation, and in a very, very, very small amount of words. So it kind of gives kids the opportunity to infer things and kind of build the rest of the story themselves. So that one was really, really cool. So there's tons of resources in there. And like I said, I got them all from my library. And then there's other ones that are more, everyone's familiar with the Lorax, but that one's a great thing to talk about the importance of trees and how they affect every aspect of wildlife and our lives, the things that we can get from plants, but also give away. And then the other last thing that was in there, there's some videos, which I'm sorry, Megan and I both tried to mess with the format of these videos. They just showed up like 3 in a row of the same video. We can't figure out why, but in that Moodle and the resources tab, there's some short videos that would be great little quick videos to show. You can show them virtually, or you can show them in your classroom. And they're quick. They're about how to identify trees. They're about doing leaf rubbings and things like that. So those are some short little resources that could be good transition videos or something like that for your kids, students. Sorry, I try to get away from saying kids, and it's just, I fight it all the time. Students. So those were great. And then there's a couple of programs. iNaturalist is an amazing program that you can do with your kids. It's turning your classroom into interacting with real studies, and their data that they collect is used for national studies. So it really shows how your students can impact the future of science and how science can be used. So there's a couple of those at the bottom. There's one through NASA. So those are at the bottom of the resources. So feel free to utilize those, or if you have questions about them, please send them to me, and I can either get an answer from Donna, or I can get an answer, give you an answer right from my own brain potentially. So we'll see. But that's really kind of all I had. We have a giveaway today, but that was all of my resources. And if anyone had anything they would like to share, or a way that, I would love to hear how you think you could incorporate this into your classroom, because oh my gosh, my tree root, my green tree root is leaking all over my desk. And it completely, here, I'll show you. It completely filled up in this amount of time. It's all the way up to the top and starting to drip out onto my desk. That's what happens when you don't pay attention. Okay, does anyone have any questions or things to share, or finished up your leaf crown while we were doing this? And yeah, great job, Luce, looking good.
I was in a workshop once where we used paper bags, and they just twisted the paper bags. So you unfold it and you twist it, and then you cut the top of the paper bag, and you actually make the paper bag into a tree sculpture.
Nice.
So the top, you kind of cut them, the top of the bag.
Yeah.
And you twist it up so that the trunk is there, and the square is kind of the roots on the bottom. So it was really fun. That was a great idea I learned from one of the participants at a workshop I was at.
And what a great take home, you know what I mean? That's something that could even turn into a keepsake kind of a thing too, which is always nice, you know. This leave, this bark vest, I mean, granted, that kid is gonna take that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But hopefully they would wear it and do a little dress up and stuff. But yeah, that's an awesome modification too, because you could even do the leaf cutouts on top of that, if you know what I mean, or you could cut your, paint it. You could do all sorts of stuff. So that's great.
Yeah. So, but I like the vest too, because kids, once they put a vest on, they become that thing, and they'll all just be trees, and they'll be swaying around, or they'll love that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, definitely. It kind of, when we were talking about what lesson we wanted to do, this one incorporates a lot of the things that I think are important for kids, which is, discussion and imagination and hands-on stuff. And there's a lot of fine motor skills that are involved in this. So I think it's, this is you can take this and adapt it to a lot of different levels for your students.
Yep.
Or your children, in my case.
I made Mickey a vest.
Oh, did you? Nice. A little mini one. Oh, that's and that would be a fun thing too. You know what I mean? Like your classroom stuffies or whatever, get their own little vest. That'd be perfect. And you could have them wear it at the beginning of the week, and then the kids see that Mickey's dressed up, and it like gives them a little sneak peek of what they're going to be doing later in the week. That'd be really fun. Oh, Mickey. We don't have mascots here. No mascots that we could dress up here. If anybody did have anything else to share, awesome. Please jump right in. I can jump into our giveaway though, Megan, if we're ready for that portion.
Yeah, so Natalie had picked these out if you want to.
Oh, I forgot. Oh, let me stop sharing this. Yeah, so we got these little classroom or home tools from Acorn Naturalist, and they're on a little carabiner, so you could clip them on a backpack if you're going on a walk, or you could just have them in a nature play area if you have one in your classroom. And they're little discussion questions about, like, I can't remember some of them off the top of my head, but you do have them.
Let me give you, let me throw a couple out there, because we have a couple times. So then you can respond in the chat. Why don't we try this? These are really fun. So I picked this one just because it's tree related, and we'll do a couple others. But it says, imagine you are a tree. How would you feel when it rains? Pop a response in the chat.
I like quenched. I feel like when I read the word quenched, it, like, I could feel it in my soul. You know what I mean? Like, you just know what that feeling is when and so you could kind of talk about, that's a great word to talk, or a great way to talk about, how words have more than one just meaning, that you can feel them when you say them out loud. When you hear the word squishy, you know exactly what that word feels like,
Yeah. We can try another. So there's all different kinds. So I like this one. It says, what is it like to be an ant? If you were an ant and saw an apple, what would you do? Watching ants with kids is really fun. I don't know if you've ever tried that, but they're commonly on playgrounds and sidewalks and that. So if you're able to get outside and just watching how they move and their ability to carry really heavy things.
My kids used to call ant colonies ant comedies, and we have those, landscape rocks. And so they would pull up a couple, and then they would, during the summer, they'll like leave a Cheeto out and then like see how long it takes for that Cheeto to be gone, or how many ants come out. It's actually a really fun activity. You kind of leave a little bait object please outside of your school or classroom or house, but leave a little bait object out to see what will happen over time. And we're going to go visit the Cheeto and see what's up. It's just such a fun thing to do. It's so easy. You know what I mean? It's just like good discussion. You could talk about teamwork and you could talk about all sorts of things.
I would call my friends for an apple party, it says here. Yeah. Yeah. So we have a variety of different kind of educators on the call, and I'd be curious to know too, this activity, like Natalie was saying, there's so many different directions or things you could do with it, and I'm curious to know how you might incorporate To Be a Tree, or what the pieces and parts from today. If you please unmute and
yeah, go for it, Karen. I can maybe unmute you too. There we go.
Oh, thank you. Is that fine? Can you hear me?
You're great.
Oh, so we're doing a letter each week and we're on cue. So when it's T, which gives me time, I'm going to do this. I was writing notes the whole time. So I have 3-year-olds and we can make trees, but I have to find I've seen some songs, but I'm gonna have to listen to them. Music with everything remains in their mind then.
Yeah, and I can try to throw a song on the Moodle, Karen.
Okay.
There's a couple different ones. I'm going to make a note because otherwise I won't remember.
Natalie, I have the song list up. Is there one we could play a little bit of one because we have a few minutes. So is there one?
If you
have,
there's probably there's one. It's I don't know where it is on the resource list on the website, Megan.
I left my book downstairs. I was looking at it. Does anybody have the actual activity open I can play? Or we can just pick one. I bet This Bark on Me is one.
Bugs in Your Bark is a cool so anyways, that one is like it would be a great great thing to do even just after you did all of this, you know what I mean? Because then you could talk about all the bark and everything, and you could talk about tree juices, which I didn't necessarily need in my brain, but you could talk about what that could be and what that means to a tree and what the liquid inside of a tree actually contains if you wanted to go in that deep, or the kids could come up with it on their own. Maybe it's maple syrup, who knows? You know, so that would be really fun. My kids would like that because they could do all the knocking parts too. That was fun. But yeah, there's a whole list of, if you got the physical book, it comes with a CD, right, Megan? And then, but those songs are all available on the Project Learning Tree website. If you're doing virtual school, you can, Megan just played that through Zoom. If you do Zoom class, you can just select a file to play, and then it's not playing through your computer speakers through your microphone. It sounds a little better. I don't know if anyone has done that before, but so yeah, definitely the song stuff. And then there are tons and tons, a lot of these books that Donna gave me have read aloud videos on YouTube. So, you know, you could watch that prior or after or middle, you know, as a little break. if you wanted to put that on where you can set up the next part of it while they're watching that tree book video, I mean, that time for you is also really important to transition from one thing to the other as well. You know what I mean? So definitely there's so much play with all the Project Learning Tree programs, but this one specifically has tons and tons of freedom.
Great.
Thanks, Karen.
Thank you, Natalie.
Yeah, there were some great ideas in the chat too. Catherine, who's up in Canada, I don't know if anyone's reading it, but Catherine's up in Canada, and she wants to do it as all of the leaves from the different trees, from the leaves of the different trees for the different provinces in Canada, which is such a cool way to incorporate like a geography element to this. That was really cool. And you can do it with state trees too. You can do, the state tree of Illinois, and things like that. So there's some, or not all of you are from Illinois. I'm from Illinois. Spoiler alert, I'm from Illinois. Or whatever your state tree is, maybe there's some kids in there that just moved or something like that. You could do their state tree. So there's some cool ways to incorporate some different things there too.
Well, thanks. So we can do our wheel of names if you're ready.
Yes, I am ready.
We have two of the nature circles for today.
Let me pull up my screen. Oops, I got to get out of this one, and here's our little maybe. Here's all of us from today. You can't hear it, but it's making a really cool Wheel of Fortune sound right now. Is it gonna stop? Natalie S, not me, Natalie, but another Natalie. So you won, and then
is Natalie on the call? Let me just double check.
Oh, okay.
I don't think Natalie's on the call, so let's try.
How dare
again.
she? Okay. Jenny A, is she on the call?
Nope.
All right, let's keep it going,
right,
guys. We'll get it. We will get it. Serenity P?
She's here.
Yay!
Yay!
Woohoo! Yeah.
I hear you.
And Sarah S?
Nope.
Ah,
Not
guys.
today. Yeah, not everybody makes it live.
Mark. I know he was here.
Mark's here.
All right. All right. So that is it, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me today, making leaf crowns, making vests, if you did so, and if you didn't, no pressure. And I really hope that you kind of incorporate some of these things, and you have a couple at least. I always try to take just even one thing away from something. So I hope you guys got your one thing to take away, and we'll look forward to seeing you guys next week and at the programs in between.
Yeah. So Tuesday evenings, our next keynote speaker, Diana Reese Williams. She's an early childhood educator turned professor, and she runs her own Outback Nature consulting and services. So she has a lot to share about incorporating really cool nature-based learning ideas into the classroom or into your home. So hope you can all join us on Tuesday.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. I'll be leaving now. Great job, Karen.
That is funny.